Hello everyone, myself Sanat Kumar Swai, Assistant Professor at Vedang Institute of Technology, Bhubaneswar. Hope you are all doing well. And in today's class, we'll be discussing about the leadership. In previous classes also we have discussed about leadership, but in today's class we'll be discussing about the various styles of leadership. What are the different styles of leadership in the organizational behavior? Okay, and also we'll be looking at various perspectives in the Indian scenario. How does it work? Okay, and also a few examples will be discussed. Okay, and we'll see the relevance of those examples and the leadership styles. Okay, so in the first slide, before getting through it, we'll look at the introduction. So what exactly is leadership? If you can recall the leadership, the definition of leadership, how does it, why is it important in a organizational culture? If you can recall it, in the previous classes we have already discussed about it. What do you understand about leadership? What exactly? See, leadership comes from the word leader, from leader to leadership. Okay, so lot of things depend on a leader. How a leader leads extremely important. Okay, that can be any organization, that can be a any any you see the politicians, those are also leaders. So it is extremely important for a leader to lead in a proper way because that is, they have to be extremely focused to which way they're going to lead organization, or maybe a company, or maybe an organization, maybe in country as well. Okay. So it plays a very important role. It plays a very crucial role in shaping the organization and achieving various goals. So if you're looking at an organization, we'll say that they play a very important role in shaping the organizational culture and achieving goal. But if you're looking at a country, okay, if you're looking at a country, the leaders play extremely important role. Okay. Now consider leaders of our country, consider leaders of various other countries, and you can chalk out a difference between the leadership roles, leadership qualities, what our leaders uh, uh, present and what other leaders present. Okay, so they play a very important role in shaping any kind of country or any kind of organization. Now, why we need to understand? Okay, see, that is the leadership role which they play. Now, how do they play? I mean, what are the ways of leadership? What are the different styles of leadership? And why we need to understand those? Because those are to understand those kinds of different leadership styles is essential, because in the management procedure, how we are going to have an effective management. If there is no system, you tell me, if there is no system, whether how good the leader may be, if there is no system, that's not going to work. So there has to be certain ways of working. There has to be certain um, styles of working. Okay, then only we can say that yes, this particular style of leadership may not suit this to this particular organization, or this particular organization may require this kinds of particular leadership style. Okay. So in order to effectively run those organizations, so that is why we need to understand various kinds of leadership styles. Okay. So particularly in this chapter, we'll be looking at various leadership styles, what are their characteristics, okay, and we'll also look at few examples and their relevance, okay, in this particular chapter. So the first one is understanding leadership styles. Okay, so the leadership styles, they are categorized in various ways through based on their what kind of approach they are playing and what kind of impact on the team dynamics they are playing. Okay. So these are some prominent styles. Like first one is autocratic leadership. Now, what do you mean by autocratic? From autocracy leads to autocratic. Okay. Now, what do you mean by autocracy? Autocratic means it's something like that decisions are being made unilaterally. Okay, with various less input which has been taken from the or less advice which has been taken from the team members of that organization. Okay. Now you see, for example, if we consider, let's take two uh, countries. Okay, India versus China. Okay. Now, what comes into your mind when we talk about India versus China, particularly in the leadership style, the way Indian leaders run our country, and the way the Chinese leaders they run the country. So who is the president of China? Xi Jinping, right? And who is the leader of India? Narendra Modi, right? So what is the way? How do they actually run their country? How do they? What kind of leadership they play? Here you say, in case of China, you will see that there are a lot of development and fast development. They have um, build a hospital in maybe a couple of months. They build a railway track, they have laid railway track in a couple of days. Okay, they have sanctioned this much amount of money for any kind of project. But for India to take these kinds of decisions, it take a lot of time. Why? Because they work on a fast track basis. Fast track. China works on a fast track basis, whereas India it has to consult a lot of people. In China, the decisions are being made unilaterally. So the leadership style is autocratic. So they do not take a lot of input from their team members or their parliamentary members. Okay, maybe MPs or MLAs or whatsoever. But in India, you have to take the consent, you have to take the views, you have to take um, their what their sayings of various members who are associated with the government. So that is why the decisions are not taken unilaterally, particularly in India, rather than it has been taken democratically. Okay. But in case of China, the decisions are being taken unilaterally. Okay. So they follow the autocratic leadership. Now, what are the characteristic if you say? Characteristic are centralized decision making. Okay. So there is a central, okay, where which is a basis of all kind of decision making procedures. Okay. It's not like decentralized. Like I mean, um, what is the center of in India? If we consider what is the center, it is New Delhi. Okay. So if there is an autocratic leadership, then there is a center. From that center, all the decisions are being taken. Okay. It's not decentralized basically. Okay. Next is clear directive and expectation. So they have got clear directives and they have got clear expectations that yes, the decision which we are taking, it has to meet to our expectation as seen in Chinese leadership basically. Okay. Next is limited team autonomy. Okay. So the team who are working for that particular project or particular task, they don't have any kind of autonomy. I mean, they cannot change the course of track. Rather, they have to stick to they have to adhere to whatever directions they have been given to. Okay. Now, this is in case of the country, but if we can also consider that to any kind of organization. Okay, so if you look at in India, for example, many traditional manufacturing firms adopt this style to ensure adherence. So if you see a company or any kind of um, traditional company, basically, okay, in India, okay, you will see that they follow this kind of autocratic leadership. Okay, and basically the head of that company or head of that organization, they make the decision unilaterally, and all have to adhere to that. Okay, so this is all about the autocratic leadership. Next is democratic leadership, which, as I've already said, India. Okay, India is a in terms of company, sorry, in terms of country based. Okay, so if you're discussing about China and India, then we'll say that India is a democratic leadership, follows it democratic leadership, right? Okay, so in what happens in case of democratic leadership is that the leader who is following a democratic way, they participate in that, they encourage the teams, okay, all the teams, that they should participate in the decision making process. Okay, there's a boardroom and everybody has got something to say, everybody's input has been taken into consideration before any kind of decision has been made. Next, what are the characteristic is collaborative environment. So everybody collaborates. Whatever decision has been taken, or whatever decision is going to be taken, there is a collaboration. Okay, the environmental is collaborative. Okay, second, secondly is open communication. If I want to say something, then definitely I can say something. Okay, it is very open. It's not a closed communication. Next, shared responsibility. Okay, everybody feels a sense of responsibility towards the organization. That yes, I have something to say towards the organization. My words are being taken into consideration. Okay, so I have a responsibility towards the organization. Okay, so that is also one of the characteristic of the democratic leadership, right? Now, if you take an example, like for example, IT companies often utilize the democratic leadership. So if you see, there are a lot of IT companies these days in India. Okay, so they follow these kinds of democratic leadership. Like from the every employee working in the IT company, they're a part of the team. Okay, so every team member, whether it comes from a lower level team member, or a higher ranking team member, everybody has got something to say. Okay, their words are being taken into consideration before any decision is being made. Okay. Mm, um, Right. Okay. How we can say, so what happens there is that there is a collaborative environment and there is a shared responsibility. Now, shared responsibility. I'll give you an example that these days the IT companies in India, what they do is that they also give a share. Like you can own share. If you are an employee of an IT company, then you get an opportunity to own some share in the company. So what happens? What do you mean by share? Share means you are a part of that organization. Okay, you're not just an employee that you just work and you take the money. You are a shareholder in that company. So if the company goes down, you also lose. If the company goes up, you also win. Okay, so that helps the company, that there's a loyalty, sense of responsibility from the team members towards the company or the organization. So this is known as the democratic leadership. Next, transformational leadership. What do you mean by transformational leadership? Transform. What do you mean by transform? Change. Okay, a change, you can say. Okay, so the leaders who are following these kinds of transformational leadership style, who are they? Those are like they while working with their employees, what they do is that they normally inspire and motivate. They inspire and motivate their employees that it's okay. It is also okay that you are working for this organization, but sometimes you have to look beyond your own stake. Okay, beyond your own interests for the sake of the organization. Okay, you need to understand that. So what happens? Those leadership, the leaders who are following these kinds of transformational leadership style, they normally inspire. They have the capability to inspire and motivate their employees so that they look beyond or they exceed beyond their own interest or the organizational goals and objectives. Okay, so what kind of characteristic these leaders they follow? They have a very visionary outlook. Visionary outlook means they look at the future. What can happen to our company? What can happen to our organization? How can we achieve more better than what we have today? Okay, so they have a vision for the future. Okay, next, focus on employee development. Okay, so in this kind of leadership style, also you will see that a lot of focus is also been given on the employee development. Okay, next, high level of enthusiasm and inspiration. Now, what do you mean by high level of enthusiasm and inspiration? In this case, you will see that not only at the higher level, but also at the ground level, the employees who come from a lower level employee, they also have a sense of like enthusiasm and inspiration. They've been inspired by these kinds of leadership. Okay, and a lot of enthusiasm can be seen to go beyond the expectation. Okay, and also exceed from their own interest. Okay, so these are the few characteristics of the uh, transformational leadership. Okay, now if you look at the example, okay, uh, you will see all of you know about Narayan Murthy, who is the founder, was the founder of Infosys, who's the founder of Infosys. Okay, so he's basically an entrepreneur. Okay, so entrepreneurs like Narayan Murthy, who's a founder of Infosys, very one of the um, first and largest IT giant in India. So they follow this kinds of transformational leadership. Okay, or you can say that he's a transformational leader. Okay, why? Because in Infosys, if you are working for Infosys, you will see that Infosys encourage growth and innovation. Okay, it encourages the growth and innovation of their employees, right? So this is an example of the transformational leadership. Okay, very important because see, transformational leadership is also is extremely important for the growth of a company. Okay. Next is transactional leadership. Now, what do you mean by transactional leadership? See, it is very easy from the word itself. You can say, what do you mean by transaction? Some exchange, money exchange. You are doing some sort of transaction. Okay, so from that transaction comes the transactional leadership. Okay, so what exactly is transaction? Transaction means some sort of like a reward, some sort of like achievement. Okay, perks you can say, benefits you can say, certain punishments you can say. Okay, so these kinds of leadership that focus on structured tasks, okay, and various rewards punishment based on your performance. Okay, so if you are performing in a better way, then you are being rewarded. If you are not performing accordingly, according to your organization, then there are certain punishments which are being meted out to you. Okay, so the leaders who follow these kinds of structured task and reward punishment based on performance are known as transitional leaders. Okay, now what are the characteristics? They have clear structure and goals. A structure has been followed and the goals and objectives are also been clearly written. Okay, next is performance oriented. Okay, so all the tasks, all the projects, everything is been performance oriented. You have to perform. Okay, your performance is being taken into consideration. Next is reward and consequences. So if you do better, then there are certain rewards. If you don't do better, then there are certain consequences which are being meted out to you. Okay, now if we look at few examples, so in India, many government organizations implement transactional leadership to achieve compliance. uh, so certain government organizations, they follow these kinds of leadership, but actually not all the states they follow. There are a lot of states, there are 30 states in India, and not all the states they follow these kinds of transactional leadership. But many uh, governments, the state governments, are extremely strict about it. Uh, okay, and they follow these kinds of transactional leadership, particularly on the government servant. Okay, and they have a very clear strategy. They have got a very clear goal, very structured goal, and it is performance oriented. Like you have to perform. If you even there's a misconception that if you get a government job, then um, rest assured you don't your performance is not been taken into consideration. But that have been gone days. Okay, you have to perform, either perform or perish. Okay, so it is very performance oriented, and there are certain rewards and consequences based on your performance. So this is all about the transactional leadership. Next is laissez-faire leadership. So what is meant by laissez-faire leadership? Laissez-faire leadership, you see, basically, if you're working for a multinational organization, or which may be a established organization, then you may not find these kinds of leadership. But if that's a very small organization, okay, or maybe a startup, you can say. All of you know what is a startup? What is a startup? What exactly is a startup? Startup is something like which is a, I mean, baby organization, you can say. Okay, it may be it start up. Okay. So what happens is that maybe an entrepreneur, okay, he starts on his own, or few entrepreneur, young entrepreneur, they come together to start their own. Okay, so that is known as startup. So in these kind of startups, basically you will find this laissez-faire leadership style. Okay, so what happens in this particular leadership is that the leaders provide minimum direction to the team member. So they don't particularly give you a direction, and they give you the autonomy that yes, you can take your own decision. We want the result. We are focused on result. That's it. As long as you perform, we are happy. Okay. So these days also, you must have seen work from home. Okay. Most of the people, they can work from home as long as they perform. The companies have got no issue whatsoever. Okay. So sometimes it is better, but in the established organization, they do not follow these kinds of leadership. Okay. There's a centralized authority who gives the direction. Okay, so what are the characteristics? So characteristics are like high autonomy. Okay, the team members, they have got their own autonomy. They can work accordingly. They can take some certain decisions on their own. Okay. Next is trust in employees' capability. So these kinds of organization, they have a trust. Okay, they have a trust in the capabilities of the employees. That yes, these tasks can be performed well by the employee. Next is supervision. Okay, so they have got a very minimal supervision. You don't have to report every now and then to your line manager, and you have to give a detailed report. A detailed report that yes, what you have done so far, what is your planning for the next day, or what is your calendar, okay, a task calendar for the next month or whatsoever. Okay, so in this case, the supervision is very minimal. Okay, and as I have already said in example, the startups often they adopt these kinds of leadership style. Okay, very helpful. Sometimes you will see when there's a small organization, where there's a startup organization, you will find that these kinds of leadership style is extremely helpful, okay, to grow for the organization. Okay, next, servant leadership. Now, what do you mean by servant leadership? Servant. What do you mean by servant? What exactly term called servant? You serve somebody. Yeah. Okay. So similarly, in this kind of leadership style, the leaders who follow this style, they serve whom? A team. Their team members. They serve the project team, they serve the people who are working under them. That's because they are leaders, right? How do they serve? They prioritize the needs of the team and help them develop and perform as highly as possible. So what they normally do, they understand that what exactly is the need of their team who is working under them, and they try to sort it out, okay, and help them so that they can develop and perform highly beyond their capability. They can do much better. Yes, right. So this is the leadership style. Now, what are the characteristics? Characteristic. The first one is focus on team welfare. Okay, everything else is also important, but team welfare is also one of the important aspects in these kinds of leadership style. Okay. Next is community building. Okay, community building. What is it like? You must have heard about what is it? CSR, CSR activities. Yes, corporate social responsibility. So particularly the companies or the organizations who are following servant leadership, they invest massively on CSR activity, which is directly related to community building. You are building the community where you are operating. Okay, they also have empathy and listening. Okay, okay, they have got a lot of empathy. Okay, so see, sympathy a lot of people have, but empathy very less people they possess. Okay, so and they also give you a listening ear to understand your problems. So it becomes very much uh, what I can say. I mean, fun, you can say, to work on these kinds of um, uh, uh, companies or organizations to work for. Okay, so if you take an example, leaders in non-profit organizations often practice a servant leadership. So see, most of the organizations, they are for profit. Okay, multinational organizations, why they have started the organization to earn profit, to make more money. Okay, but these kinds of servant leaderships cannot be seen in the multinational organizations. Rather, that can be seen in NGOs, okay, or non-profit organizations. Okay, if you are working for an NGO, then you will see that these kinds of characteristics can be seen. Okay, that the NGO, who is the leader of the NGO, they prioritize the need of the team. Okay, with whom they are working for, and they focus on the team welfare. They focus on the community building. They focus on empathy and listening. Okay, so these are the characteristics of servant leadership. Next. Now, this is a comparison of the various leadership style. Okay, so the first one is autocratic. Okay, so autocratic. Now, what autocratic says? Autocratic says, like, in the decision making process, it is a centralized process. All the decisions are being taken centrally. Okay, here employee autonomy also, you can see it is very low. Why? Because the decisions is being taken by the um, centrally. Okay, so the autonomy of the employee is very low. Okay, example in India is traditional manufacturing. It's not only manufacturing though. Okay, but all the traditional companies, you can say, in all the traditional companies, you will find these kinds of leadership style. Okay, autocratic style, because all the decision is being taken by the head of the organization. Okay, next is democratic. Democratic means its decision making process is very collaborative. All are supportive and very collaboration is all the decision making process is being done collaboratively. Okay, next, employee autonomy is also very high. You find a lot of autonomy, okay, in these kinds of uh, leadership style. And where you will find in the IT companies basically. Okay, next is transformational. Okay. Transformational means the decision making is visionary. You have a vision for the future. The leaders who are following this transformational leadership styles, they have a vision for the future. Okay, and here also you will find that the employee autonomy is high. Here you will see IT companies are there, but not all IT companies they follow these kinds of visionary style or transformational style. But Infosys is one of the IT company, they follow these kinds of transformational leadership style. Okay, next, transactional. Okay, so in case of transactional, it is the decision making process is very structured. They don't follow a unstructured way, rather they follow a structured way of decision making process. Okay, here also you will see that autonomy is very low. Okay, the autonomy is not as I mean, the employee do not have an autonomy, rather this is also some or the other way, it is in a structured way. So there is no deviation basically. Okay, where you'll find these kinds of styles in the government organizations. In the government organizations, you'll find that all the decisions are being taken in the structured way. For example, I'll give you an example. If you're working for a public or private organization, okay, what happens? Your promotion is based on your performance, right? Yes or no? You, when you perform based on, you may have joined the company for a couple of months ago or a couple of years ago, and you get promotion much faster than than the employees who have joined the organization for fewer years back, or maybe they are working in that company for a few decades. But still your performance matter, and once your performance matter, then you are being promoted. That happens in the case of private companies. Okay, but in case of government organizations, what happens that whether you perform or you don't perform, that's something different, but they have a structured way, structured decision making process. So after you attain certain years of your service, maybe 6 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, whatever, then you are automatically promoted. So it is already been structured that yes, if you meet this criteria, then yes, you get a promotion. So this you can transactional, you can find in the government organization basically. Okay. Next is laissez-faire. Okay, laissez-faire means decision making is very minimal. Okay, employees autonomy is also very high. Okay, and where you can find it in the startups. Okay, all the small companies or all the startup companies, you will find these kinds of leadership style. Okay, and lastly, servant leadership style. So in case of servant leadership style, you will find that all the decision is team focused. Okay, the team decides the decision making process. Okay, and here also you will find that autonomy, the employee autonomy is extremely high. Okay, and this happens only in the non-profit. Okay, so who are the non-profit? Non-profit are the basically the NGOs. Okay, right. So this is the comparison of the leadership style of various styles. Okay, next. Sorry. Okay, so now what is the impact of leadership style on organizational behavior? What impact it plays? We have already seen a lot of styles. Now what kind of impact that is going to play? Okay, so there may be, see, everything has got a positive impact and got a negative impact. Okay, so what is the positive impact of these kinds of leadership style, and what is the negative impact? Okay, so the first one is positive impact, motivation. Okay, motivation. So which leadership style is going to give you motivation? Particularly the transformational style. Okay, transformational and democratic leadership style, they help in the motivation of the employees. Okay, creativity. Which creates creativity? Laissez-faire. Okay, laissez-faire and democratic style. Okay, more you will see laissez-faire, because you will see in the startups basically, if you are a creative employee, then this is better for you to join a startup companies, because you will find a lot of creativity in the startup companies. But in the already established companies, you may not find this kinds of creativity. Okay, So laissez-faire is uh, uh, and democratic styles leadership encourages creativity. Okay. Next is negative impact. Now, what is the negative impact? For example, conflicts arises. Okay, there is a lot of conflict, employee conflict, organizational conflict, office conflict. There are a lot of conflicts which arises in the organization, which helps you to create or generate conflict. Which styles? Autocratic style. Okay, you see there is a resentment uh, in the among the employees who are working in a leadership style based company, because they don't have any autonomy, and all the decision making process has been taken up. A single person holds all the right to take all the decision. Okay, I may like you, I may hire you, I may not like you, I may kick you out. Okay, so that kind of approach is been followed in case of autocratic leadership. So what happens? Definitely in this way conflict will arise. Of yes or no? You have been working for a particular organization for a certain numbers of year, and all of a sudden I'll say that no, you're not no longer required. Definitely there will be conflicts. Okay. Next is dependence. Dependence means excessive reliance. Okay. So what happens in the transactional basically? Okay. Transactional setups, you will find out that there is a lot of dependence on the uh, on the organization by the employees. So what happens that this is also one of the negative impacts. Okay, so these are the positive impacts and the negative impacts of the leadership style. Okay, now right. So with this we have come to the end of the presentation. Okay, so before concluding, we'll be looking at what we have learned so far. Okay, so firstly, in the Indian context, the effectiveness of leadership styles depend on the organizational culture, industry, and workforce diversity. See, this may not be true for various other organizations, but if you are looking at the Indian way of working in the Indian context, basically, then what happens that the effectiveness of the leadership style, which we have already studied, okay, so it depends on the organizational culture. Okay, see, India is a based a multi cultural country, and the organizational culture, what kind of culture the organization is going to follow, that depends on the leadership style. Okay, that impacts the leadership style. Okay. Secondly, what industry? Okay, and thirdly, workforce diversity. Okay, you will see in a company you will find a lot of Marathi people are working. In a company you will see that there are a lot of Punjabi people working. Okay, in few companies you will see there are a lot of Bihari people working, or Bengali or Odia, whatever. Okay, so that changes the leadership style, the effectiveness of the leadership style, right? Particularly in the Indian context. I'm not talking about the multinational companies, okay, or companies which are based outside the India. Okay. Right. Secondly, a successful leader must be adaptable. Definitely, that should be adaptable. He should be able. He should be always ready to adapt to any kind of changes. Any successful leader. Okay. Next, often employing a blend of style to meet organization goals and response to them. See, uh, in the Indian scenario, you will see that the business environment or the business market is extremely dynamic. Okay, sometimes volatile also. I must say. Okay, so you have to be very much careful because it is a very competitive environment. Okay, so a successful leader, he has to adapt to as and changes to various kinds of change as and when required, readily adaptable. Okay, and sometimes he or she has to also uh, engage various kinds of style, leadership style. Not he may have to employ the transactional style, he may have to employ the transformational style, he have to employ the um, um, democratic style, sometimes autocratic also. Okay, so depends on the situation. They have to blend the styles, okay, to meet to the various organizational requirement, okay, and to respond to the dynamic business. Okay, next. By understanding these styles, organizations can foster a more conducive atmosphere for growth and innovation. So definitely, uh, when we are going to understand this style, then what happens is that these organizations, they can provide a conducive atmosphere. Okay, a just atmosphere where there will be growth and innovation. There should be room for growth and innovation. Okay, right. I believe you have all understood the various concepts of leadership style, and how it is important for any organization to run. Okay, without leadership, without effective leadership, a organization is not going to run properly, and it is not going to meet the um, goals and objectives of any kind of organization. Okay, be it a small organization, be it a large multinational organization. Okay, so it is very important to understand the leadership style and what kind of leadership style they are following. Okay, so thank you very much. I believe you have all understood. Okay, and you all have a good day. uh, if you have any doubt, kindly um, jot down your doubts in the next session. Thank you very much for your